Folks. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2. Okay, well, folks, thank you for coming out. It was only June 25th when we had our Fire Smart meeting, so I guess everybody's interested. My name's Mike Grenier. I'm the Area J Director for the TNRD. I'm joined tonight by Doug Houghton. Doug, where are you? You just moved. Okay, Doug Houghton, Area L Director, and the fire doesn't know boundaries, so it's spreading across both Area J and Area L. Tonight, I want to get right to the meat and potatoes here. We've got Jamie Vieira, who's our acting director for the TNRD Emergency Operations Center. Jamie, can you just, the man in green, and he's going to introduce the rest of his team when his time comes up. Tim Gazard, have I got that right, Tim? Gazard, and Tim is the incident commander for the BC Wildfire Service. And same thing, Tim's got his team. And I want to say a quick shout out to Jason Upton for putting this on, hosting this tonight. Thank you. A hearty thanks to Jason. He's had a tough start to the season. I just want to mention, quite independent of this event tonight, Jason's putting on a mean lasagna dinner. If anybody is getting hungry after this meeting, you can go up and give him some business. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Jamie Vieira. We want to get right to your, I would just simply say, if you could allow the presentations to take place. We got lots of time for question and answer after, but I think we want to get all that information out to you as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I'm also going to keep it very brief from our point of view, but we're people in some of the vests here, Joe, Nicole, Amanda, and myself. We're part of the team working out of the Emergency Operations Center in the TNRD. So I just want to take this opportunity to quickly explain our functions. So our role as a local government is we issue the evacuation orders and alerts and deal with evacuees and support them and do our best to communicate with you guys of what we know that's happening. And in terms of actioning the fire and fighting the fire, that's all on BC Wildfire. So we communicate with them, and any alerts and orders are based on their recommendation. So yeah, we're hosting this meeting here to get you all together to, again, to communicate what the plans are. And with that, I'm going to, oh, Amanda. Okay, yes, and probably people online didn't hear that. And thanks for that, Amanda. We are streaming this meeting as well. And I think they're running into some technical difficulties on the chat. So those listening online, if you have questions, please email to aellison@tnrd.ca. And we'll get the questions during the question time. So you can send those emails in right now. And I think that email address will be posted in the chat. I think that's all I have from the TNRD side. So again, the intent of this meeting is for Wildfire to talk about their upcoming plans for operations here. So I'll pass it over to Tim.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for you guys welcoming us into Canada. We've been over here for the last month up in the Prince George district, and yeah, you guys have had a really massive season, and we really are a global firefighting community now. So yeah, we always appreciate your support coming back to Australia too. In 2019, 2020 was probably the last time that happened, but it's nice to be able to come back and yeah, share some of our covered. So a bit of a fire situational update. I will be talking through a planned ignition that we are looking to do near Lac Le Jeune potentially on the weekend. So we'll go through a bit of details on that. And yeah, at the end, there's plenty of time for questions and hopefully we can answer those. If fire down at Rossmoore. And obviously the numbers change from day to day a little bit, but we are getting 100 Brazilians in tomorrow, and we've had 40 Mexicans helping us as well. So really, as I say, is a truly an international firefight. So if you just go back a couple. Obviously, we really rely on what I call plant, but you guys call, I think, equipment. So dozers and excavators. So we've got 32 pieces of equipment out there, and some of those are going to actually work through the night over the next 48 hours to put in another containment line. So I will show you where that is a little later. And you probably would have seen if little bit on the east just to protect structures closest to the fire. So that will continue while there is some threat there, but we do need to continue to reevaluate that each day really around whether that needs to remain in place. So that is also a little bit things like Chinooks can drop a lot of water. So we are well supported at the moment from the province, which is always the case. And but we are well resourced to be able to fight this fire and the other two as well. So I guess I just wanted to, while we've got this up here, just to note this bit down the bottom here. So as that sort of last hot spell, we've obviously had a couple of days of rain, and that's always welcome as firefighters. But obviously, you guys know your weather better than me, and it's the middle of summer still, and it's going to dry out. So I expect by the weekend, the moisture will come out of the fine fuels, the surface fuels, and the fire will be able to potentially spread again. So, but you can see this progression we had over those couple of days, and anyone that was around in the area would have seen quite a big column of smoke over those couple of days, and we still are yet to fully check the fire in the south. So that is the focus area for the next sort of 4 or 5 operational periods for us. Let's maybe go to the next one. Thank you. Oh, a bit far. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we call planned ignition, and which is where we actually do ignition, but we already have done 2 planned ignitions on this fire to help check it and reduce the fuel. So back on the 3rd of August, we did about a 5-kilometre section through here where we actually used a helicopter to drop some like ping pong balls, really. That's what we call them at home. They're exactly the same shape, but they just allow us to put ignition in from the air. And so we did this 5-kilometre stretch, and again, puts up lots of smoke, looks a little bit scary, but it's a way for us to control the fire with fire, which is a weird concept, but we use it all over the world, and it's a very successful tactic. And then the next day on the 4th, we did this next section up here. So again, if you think about a dozer line, a guard, mineral earth break on the ground, and we use that as the area where we want to stop it, but we often will start the ignition near the edge of the fire and work it back. So we've already done two of these planned ignitions, and I want to go into some detail in a minute just on the next one we plan. So next slide. So this is an approximate record of the guard, the mineral earth break that we've got around the fire at the moment. So this yellow line is as I say, it's approximate. Haven't got the mapping exactly there, but really do actually have guard all the way around this fire now. And there is just this section down here that we're having some difficulties just from it's very thick pine. So talked to lots of locals here over the last few weeks. And I think there was a fire maybe in the 50s and the pines came up really, really thick. So every couple of foot, there's these stunted 18-foot pine trees. And it's actually been really hard work for our machines to work through that country. So we did an initial estimate. This was going to take us up to 8 days to push down this side to do what we call tight guard. So putting the guard or the dozers next to the line of where the fire is. And as you guys would know, we've got some hot weather coming up into the back end of the weekend, but particularly next week, Monday, Tuesday. And I think there has been some talk of some sort of heat alert as well. So it's going to be warm conditions again. And if you can just think back to a couple of days ago, or last weekend really, and we had this movement down south. So we are really trying to focus to try and get this tidied up by the end of the weekend if we can, and have some of this fuel potentially burnt out using planned ignition. Next slide. Thank you. So this is a picture from one of the ignition days last week. And again, you can see it looks somewhat scary, but it is very controlled. And again, we picked the weather conditions to actually make it a safe operation for our staff, but also the community. So I guess I'm just trying to put this picture in your mind. If we do more planned ignition, which is always weather dependent, so we need the right conditions and the fuels need to be the right moisture to actually have that happen. So that rain probably is good, but it also means we need to wait a few days now for it to dry out again to put fire back into the landscape. But I wouldn't be surprised if we did that sort of same ignition that I'm talking about down here in the southwest corner near Lac Le Jeune, that you'll see something like that. And again, looks scary, but it's a controlled operation. You don't need to read the words, I'm telling you. So yeah, as I say, we use it all the time and it's used all over the world. Very effective tactic. Next slide. Thank you. So if you haven't seen these before, this is a basic schematic of it, but effectively this is unchecked fire burning in the forest. Next slide. And then, as I've already talked about, we've seen this fire already being used. We put some sort of guard in. Mineral earth break with a dozer, and we often have excavators to thin the forest a little bit around that as well. Next slide. And then typically, every operation is a little bit different, but typically we'll actually start some ignition close to the fire. And I was talking about those ping pong balls. We also use what we call an aerial drip torch, which drops a gel, and it catches on fire and allows us to put these point ignitions close to the fire edge, and then we just slowly work it back towards the guard. And obviously it depends on the wind conditions as to where that starts. It could be down here if you've got northerly, which we are forecast on the weekend. So we'd probably start down closer to this edge and then we work it back through the area in this example. But it's every operation is a little bit different, and we just need to line up the weather conditions to make it a safe operation. And so lots of decision making. We have what they call ignition specialists that are trained in doing this operation, and they provide us guidance as well as our fire behaviour analysts. So they really good at weather and they're good at understanding fire spread. So we take that science into account, and we talk to the I'm not sure what you guys call it. I'm going to call it the Bureau of Meteorology from home, but your weather people. And it's actually, it's a funny thing. It's at home, it's called the bomb, and everyone, yeah, that's it's a bit controversial, but it's such an acronym and it's stuck, and everyone just knows it now. So it's sort of part of our lexicon. But so we work with all these people that are experts in their field to undertake these operations in a safe manner. So, and if it's not right, we don't do the operation, and that's it's an operational decision on the day. So, next slide, please. And then there's the mop up and patrol stage, if you like, where we use our trucks and our unit crews. So often those guys are on foot. And it amazed me. Can I just tell a little story just about the unit crews that have come over from the US, the hotshot crews, and we don't do this at home, but they actually stay out in line and work well into the night, and then sleep online, and then get up and do it again the next day. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Those guys are obviously keen, and they do an amazing job. But so we BC also has those type of crews as well, and so it's a combination of trucks and machines, and we do the patrol. And as I say, we've got the 15 helicopters, and if we need to, they've got the air tanker base down there at Kamloops too, so we can. Sometimes it's multiple days depending on the weather, but it's yeah, it's as I say, it's a controlled operation. It's not just lit up in 1 hour and we just let it go. It's just it's a staggered operation back through the area. Next slide, please. So this is getting down into a little bit more specifics of this operation in the southwest corner of the fire. As I say, it's not checked yet, and this is the latest extent. It really hasn't moved since we had that rain the last couple of days. So as I say, it's been operationally good for us to start to put some fallback lines and containment in place. But you can see we're not too far from Lac Le Jeune, and you would have seen from a map before. There's this little section down here where we just don't. It's a dynamic operation, and so it's always weather dependent. So I guess what we're planning on, as I say, it might be Saturday, it might be Sunday, it might be that it's not appropriate to do it because the weather's not right. So, but I just want to give you a heads up of what we're thinking from a tactical point of view. Right now, this green line through here. So I'm not sure for the guys online, it might be a little bit hard to see, but I'm just going to point for the guys in the room. This green line here, and then this orange line. We've actually put guard all the way around that now, and that is ready to, no, just this was just one down here, this orange one down here. That is ready to do the planned ignition operation. And we could do that on Saturday or Sunday, as I say. It's a bigger area, and if we did do that area, the bigger area, what we're going to do is recommend to the TNRD guys that we and once these things are primed up, you won't be able to get in and out of the community easily. So I guess what we're saying is if we went ahead with that operation, we'd be recommending that we put an order in place just for that 24-hour period while we do the operation as a precaution. And it's just because once we prime these hoses, the access in and out of the community is really tricky. Effectively, you can't get in and out. So so that's one option. I just want to talk through a second option, which is probably our preferred option if we can do it. So this purple line here is a line that's effectively started this afternoon, and they're going to work for the next 48 hours on machines through the night. And we're going to push this line through from here. Whoops, that's right. Through from here back to where we actually do have guard down to here. And so that would mean that we just burn area 2, and we didn't have to burn the whole area. And that obviously makes it smaller, keeps it a little bit further away from the community. And I guess I'll just point out, this is an indicative line. I haven't seen exactly the track they're going to put in. The guys haven't come back from the field tonight to tell me that yet. But if that's the option we go with, the alerts that are in place will remain as they are. So we'll still have these set up in the town just as a precaution, but they'll be like this. They'll be flat, so you'll be able to get in and out of the community still. So just wanted to lay that out. And I also wanted to say, regardless of which operation we did at this stage, and this is always subject to change, but at this point in time, we still want to just maintain an alert over this northern part on the other side of the lake there. So that will not change with either of the operations based on the weather we've got at this time. So again, I just want to stress it's a dynamic thing, and I'm giving the information I have right now, but as the weekend comes in, it may alter, but that's our current plan. based on the weather we just had. There's no fire movement, but this is really just to be there just in case. And this is, I mean, it blows my mind, this system really. Like, it's like 11 mil of rain an hour if they run the system at full prime. It's and it shoots out about 250-foot radius around the town. And then there's the stuff in town, so that's just different again. So this is an industrial size system. I've never seen anything like it in Australia. I'm sure someone's got it there, but we don't use it like this at home. But it's very impressive. And I guess I just will say, like, these guys are very conservative with how they use it. Like, just when you've got the pump primed, it'll shoot out 100-foot radius with their sprinklers. And I guess we do take into account things like environmental erosion and things. So they won't run anything flat out all the time. It's just like often they run it for 20 minutes and they stop it. And they check conditions to make sure they're not causing harm to the environment around the community. But I just wanted to give you a sense of that. As I say, I'm super impressed with what you guys do with your structural protection. Next slide.
Protection crews wanted us to let you know that this system runs under really, really high pressure. And if something was to fail or something was to break and someone was next to it, it could be quite a dangerous situation. So if the equipment is running, just keep away from it because of that.
So I just wanted to finish off. This is the second last slide. So this is this line I was showing you guys already. That was area 1, and I had another line through here for area 2. And we obviously like to keep it as close to the fire think about what we call fallback lines or contingency lines. And we have started prepping this yellow line back here as another fallback. I hope we don't need to use it, but it is just in case. And so we've started to think about some bigger lines as well, bigger fallbacks. We haven't started prepping these. And anytime we do these operations, we try and work with people affected. So we have been working with the ranchers down here, and happy to continue to do that in whatever form that looks like. We have been working with the traditional owners or the First Nations people as well, the Upper Nicola Indian Band, and we have been asking them about the values that in the area for them, and also thinking about making sure we're not going to damage things that are important to them. So we do lots of consultation, and we do try and take other people's values and things that are important to them into consideration in our operations. Next slide. Well, that's it. Thank you. As I say, happy to take questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can't, I'll take them on notice, and we can maybe get some names and details. And yeah, it's at the back there. Sure. Yeah, sure. Oh yeah, so just saying, what are the conditions we need for burning on Saturday? So look, really we need things not to be too hot. So typically less than 30 degrees. I definitely don't want to be burning above 30 degrees if we can help it. RH above 30% is better for us. Below that, it's starting to get a bit dry. And the fuel moistures, again, I'm definitely not a Canadian expert here. So if someone with a red shirt wants to jump in, but really, I believe the fuel moisture levels, if everyone's into that, we want it a little bit drier. So up in the high 80s or low 90s, no more than that, but it's a fine line, I guess. So we need enough for a spread of fire across the landscape. If it's too damp, our ping pong balls just don't take. And if it's too dry, then they burn too intensely. So it's a really fine line, and we also don't want too much wind. So we're looking for a relatively light wind day. 10 to 15 k's that'd be around max. So and obviously each day is a little bit different. You start these operations, sometimes it's a little bit more gusty, but yeah, we want a relatively still day, not too hot, it's like the Goldilocks, not too dry. But yeah, but it's and that's why I have these existing specialists, because they really clued into what these parameters are, and different forest types are different too. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So ideally, north or northwest light, that'd be good. If you just want to go back to the map one before, so that would obviously northwest, but push it down into this corner, north, push us away from the community. So ideally that'd be the best. And but if we had a super light wind day, it was a slightly different direction, we may consider that. But I think that's actually forecast for the weekend. I haven't seen an update this afternoon, but that's what was forecast when I last looked. So any other questions? Oh, I'll start with you. Yeah. How wide? It does vary. Oh, sorry. How wide are the fire guards? It's like I'm hearing an echo of myself. Look, it varies a lot. So I should have put a picture in there. You could have seen one. So typically a dozer maybe 5 to 10 meters. It just depends. And then often, as I say, they do some thinning. So there was a maybe for people that are familiar with the area, there was an old what we called, I don't know if it actually had a name, but we called it the community guard that was put in quite a number of years ago at the back of the town here. So we've actually used that as the line. That might be 20 meters wide there with a fuel-free area with no tree. Well, we'll say no trees, but the dozer line itself is probably more like 5 to 10 meters. So it's normally a couple of blades wide. Sometimes it can be a little bit more, but it's just enough to have a fuel-free area for the fire to stop at. So we can, and then where people can also drive on it generally too. So it makes it accessible to do the patrol and the mop-up work. Another question? Yep, over the back. In terms of if we put the order on, or just for the ignition. So the information team here, like we'll definitely be talking about it the day before, and we'll try and put information out if we're going to go ahead with the burn, and potentially we'll put information out if we're not going to go ahead with the burn too. So now that I've let you all know that we're potentially going to do it, but there is a chance that we might not do it, and we can definitely inform you either way. So we'll just keep you informed every day. There's the BC Wildfire website. We put quite detailed operational updates on that, and it actually describes what we're going to be doing. And we talk about west flanks, and it's quite a lot of detail, but it'll definitely be advertised either way on that, whether we're going ahead or not. So, so I'd say the day before we should have a good sense of whether it's going to be right. But checking in on the morning, and as well, if you haven't got the information, we might say that we need to actually make a final decision on the morning of the operation. Just depends, because as I say, we've got that little bit of moisture, and that's probably just depends how quickly that dries out. So,
and just to add to that, we'll push it out through the TNRD communication as well. I know you guys have been monitoring that website as well as the Voyant alert. So there's two ways the Voyant alert works. There's when you put in an alert, the push notification, but then there's the information. So we put that out through an information, just like the one we did for this meeting.
thanks, Jamie. And the last thing, Andy, I love having Andy there. He just helps whisper in my ear. Is that we are actually going to have a couple of people wandering around the community in this area over the next couple of days. So we'll continue to, if you see them around, and yeah, these two, they can give you some updates as well. Yes, over here in the blue shirt. Yes, so it was just about can we put some information on some boards? And the answer is yes. At the campground. And if there's another local spot that's good, we're open to hear that suggestion as well. Yes, so that was the suggestion was right here at the bridge. Team's nodding, so we can do that. It's just the only thing with the information board is that obviously it's not as dynamic. but we can come out and, especially over the next operational period, make a commitment to try and update that at least daily. So does that sound fair, guys? Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. And for those folks that aren't in the Lac Le Jeune area that possibly attended, like from the lower Knutsford area that have been affected by this fire, Edith Lake, Long Lake area, as soon as we get the information from TNRD, it'll be put through the Knutsford chat channel so that they're informed. We had an earlier burn on Hull Hill, and we relayed that to everybody in Knutsford on that chat channel, and that seems to work very well. We just had a 3-day fire training session at Knutsford Hall today, and we were informed today that this was going ahead. So Nat, our communications director, has informed our community through the chat channel to knowing that this is going ahead. So if you see a bunch of smoke, somebody down in Lower Long Lake or something is well informed. I think through this whole process, communication is a key, and I think we've done a pretty good job in this fire to date. Through this fire has grown, like you say, the last 3 weeks right from here down to darn near Stump Lake and through the ranching community and everything. I think we've worked great together as a team, as a community, with community help on the fire, like these folks sitting right here, to work with the BC Wildfire Service, the landowners, the ranchers, the state, to work together. For the first time in history, we had a team out fighting the fire that was gathered at Knutsford Hall at work with BC Wildfire Service to work with the community. And I think, you know what, when you can get community, working with BC Wildfire, we'll get through this together. And I wish you the best on the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, over here. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So just for the residents near Pine Ridge, how close is the planned ignition to the properties? So this is where I'm going to plead ignorance and say Pine Ridge is, I'm assuming, at the back of the community here. Is that correct? Yeah. So again, if we did area, I'm going to call area 1 and 2. So if you remember that, maybe just go back to the last slide and we can talk to that. Oh no, just this one, area 1 and 2. That'll be about 700 meters, and that's why we've got the pumps in place, because it is close, and it's really just about embers as a precaution. So that's why we're saying if we went with this area up here, we'd be having the pumps all ready to go, and the lines will be all primed because it is close. I totally acknowledge that. So if we went with this option here, it's more like 1.5 to 2 Ks. So a little bit further, so a bit more time and space there. And that's, again, we don't need the pumps primed. They have enough time to do that if they had to in a hurry. So does that answer your question? Okay. Yep. Yes, that's the 1 kilometer grid. We just use this for communication with our crews. Really, it's just, it gives them we can talk to R22 and we know where we're talking about. So yes, sir. This here, the purple line. So that's what I'm saying. If we just well, no, I'll just talk to this. This is good. So just from this purple line. So I should say the question. So is this section down through here and down there. And as I say, the estimates from the field, because of those tight pines, it's going to be up to 8 days to do that tight guard. And it was too long because we've got this next hot spell. So we have put guard in. This is in place now. So this is already ready, prepped. We finished this last night. This line through here, back down there. So there is a guard, you could argue, all the way around the fire. It's just there's all these all this unburnt fuel in this section in here. So, and then I guess, as I said, the next 48 hours, we are going to try and push this. This doesn't exist right now. It's just bush at the time, or forest. And we're going to try and put that in to just make this a smaller area to work with. And that's our preferred area to work in, if we can do that. The estimate is we should be able to do that over the next 48 hours. So that sets us up for the weekend to potentially do that smaller area of ignition. Does that answer your question okay? Yep. Well, as I say, I just had to make it my best guess based on what I could see on the contour. So I believe this is probably wrong, but I can, what I can. Yes. Yes, that's a great question. So just to repeat the question. So it was just concerns about the lake level with the pumping, and I think that's most of it. There is that a fair summary? So we do have crews, the structural protection crews. They'll be in there potentially 24 hours a day as we need. And as I was saying, we only run the pumps for as much as we need. So 20 minutes is often what they'll do, and they will monitor the water level. So we have talked about that as a because these things pump so much water, right? It's a massive system. So we definitely don't want to drain the lake. It's not in our interest, it's not in your interest, it's not anyone's interest. So so we are monitoring. They definitely, that's something they look at probably hourly, really. It's just one of those things they will monitor. And as I say, they just to keep adjusting these things because they put out so much water. You don't need to run them 24 hours a day by any means. And if there was some threat, then obviously we run them for that period, but it can be for short periods. And I've already got them set up today. That was the second part of the question was how much time, I guess, or how long would it take to prime. And they're already pretty much primed. And on the outside, this outer ring that we put around this part of the community, we just haven't primed all the internal lines inside the community. So there's still access in and out of there. And I was talking to my structural protection branch leader there tonight. He's just say he's the leader for this stuff, and he was telling me that they've already tested it today. I can't give you a definite answer, but potentially, obviously depends on the coming weather. And look, I'd estimate 4 or 5 days, but that doesn't mean that those internal hoses will potentially let the water out of those if there's no threat. And so you can still come back into the community. We'll just probably potentially keep the system in place just in case for a number of days after. So it is also a dynamic question. It depends on wind direction and how clean the burn was in terms of how much fuel was reduced. And so I can't give you 100%. It's going to be 2 days or 5 days or 10 days, but I'd expect it to be at least 3 or 4 days afterwards that would keep the system in place. So yes, yeah, we'll have people there 24 hours a day if we needed to, if we thought there was some need to have that. So so I should have said the question first. and also around the mill, Interfor mill up there. So when we needed to, we'll run the crews 24 hours a day if the threat's there. So, yes, sir. The logging company come and potentially do that? Yes. Yeah. So the question was about do we work with the logging companies and how do they get involved? Is that a fair summary? Yeah. So I'd have to go back and take that question on notice for this. Partner to us when it comes to firefighting, and where we can, like where there's time and space, like they do bunch them up and put log landings and I'm not going to go into all the details of lease because I don't know, and I'm happy to take that question on notice if you really want the details around how that works in BC. But I'd say the answer is where it can, and it does happen, and I'm just not sure. I'll just have to take it on notice for Rossmoore exactly how we're working with the logging companies down here. So I couldn't give you a bit more on that, but it's the answer is yes, we do where we can, I guess is probably the short answer. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Our question. First of all, thanks for coming out and communicating because man,
Thank you. Thanks for showing up. It's great. Yes.
So this questions are, you talked about area 1 burn, area 2 burn.
Yes.
To deciding to go to area 1 burn. And then the subsequent question would be, why not burn? There's all that fuel there anyway. And are we going to be, I know we're in survival mode right now, but why wouldn't we be a bit more proactive moving forward? Burn that area anyway, so we're not in this situation again in 2 years.
Yeah, so I'm going to not answer the second question because that's a policy question, and I'm going to defer back to my colleagues. But how about we take that on notice? I'd have to go back and get some more information about the planned burn policy in BC. So, but what I will answer is that the first question there. Oh, sorry, the first. It's like it's a comedy act, but it's just a little bit more serious than that. So the question was, the first question was about really about triggers and why we do one area and what would be the trigger to do the area. I guess I'm going to start. How I think about it is obviously our preference is to do area 2 and just do area 2. That's all we want to, because that will contain the fire, and so we'll be going. That's a good result. If for whatever reason we get a day, a week later, 2 days later, whatever it is, it gets into this area 1, then potentially that would be a trigger for us to think about actually burning this out as another area. So ideally, we don't have to do anything in area 1 if we can get this line in. It's just there. It's now prepped and ready as another small burn area that we could actually do a planned ignition in. So yeah, I'm gonna skip the policy question because I can, because I'm Aussie and. Sorry about that, but come and see me offline and I can have, yeah. Another question. The back there, sir. Yes, that's a good question. So that's why I've got the pumps in as a start. That's part of the contingency. And then I guess based on the weather, we're thinking it's going to move this way, but we will. I don't have it drawn on the map just yet, but there is another little garden behind the back here, and probably given we've got that sprinkler system in place, we probably don't need to at this point use that guard just yet, because almost the wet line's just as good as a guard in my mind. And then it depends how far this way, but again, we have to get those southeast and southwest. I guess that's why we've sort of focused on this part of the fire down here. This is what we think is the more likely spread path down to the south. if for some reason we see the weather change in the next, or we get some indication of moving back that way, we'll definitely start to plan up some lines back in this north corner again. So, yeah, sorry, I think really, just to reiterate that, it's really about focus on the south right now. And in terms of contingency, it's the sprinkler system in the township here as our sort of immediate focus. I think if we think about operational periods beyond the next sort of 5 or 6 days, then potentially we could think about that as, again, if the weather dictates that. But again, I'm not being a local, I believe easterly flow is not a really big thing for you guys in summer. So coming from this direction back that way, it's more likely to be out of the north or the southwest. And hence why we sort of think this is less likely that it's going to push a long way that way. It's not saying it can't, but the focus is down here right now as a priority. So, yes, sir. Oh, is it moving around or is smoke? Yes. So inside the perimeter, it's largely burnt out, but there is some patches. So I'll give you an example. Maybe we just go back. Sorry, just to be plain with the slides. If we could just go back and we'll just look at the whole fire area for a sec. Maybe one of the first slides there. Yeah, this the one with the go back the other way. Oh, it's no. Yes. That's good work. So look, over the last few days we have, no, let's step back. Last 2 days, we've really had no fire movement, obviously a little bit of rain. The fire still got some smokes in it, but it's looked pretty good. But that's what you expect after a couple of days rain. And really what I've learned, this is my 3rd time to BC fighting fire in the last 20 years. And it looks pretty quiet when you get rain, but then you get those hot days come around and you get that Duffy fuel and it starts to puff up again. So I don't have an exact estimate, but I'd say from the photos I've seen, at least 80 to 90% of this area is burnt. But there is patches of fuel. There's little gullies and things up in the northeast here. This is actually looking really quiet through here. I'm feeling pretty good about that section right now. As I say, that was one of the areas we did that planned ignition back on the 4th. So it's a hard thing to describe, but I'd say it's looking quite good at this stage. But definitely from a community point of view, especially in the Knutsford area, like you still could see some smokes over the next, I expect you'll see some smokes over the next couple of weeks with this hot weather. So it won't be out really until you get out of this sort of summer period. Like you'll still see some smokers anytime you get hot weather. And that's why we'll still have some patrol crews like going around but it won't be like the picture I showed you before with the big column. It'll just be small bits of smoke around the place. Hopefully that answers that a little bit. Yes, because we don't have this checked yet. So again, we can get those northwest, especially as I say into next week, warm, hot conditions. And this bit down here is not, it can still move, I guess. Where this bit here, well, it's mostly burnt out. So it's as I say, this is not the fuels there to really push it around. You'll get little pockets of maybe there's 10 hectares here and there, or I say gully systems typically often don't burn. And so you get those hotter days and you'll get smoke come up and a little bit of fire sometimes even will run around, but it's got so much black around it, a burnt area. There's no fuel to burn there anymore. So it can't spread except in that small pocket. So you'll still see that for many weeks to come. So. Exactly that purple line. But it's about 500 hectares, maybe a little bit less, both of them, area 1 and 2. And if we can do the purple line, I'm going to say that's 3/8, which is 200 hectares, about approximate numbers. So if we can just do the purple point of view. As I say, a column to draw the fire back in. So it just depends a little bit on what the objective is and how much room you've got to work with. So, yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. So 200 and 300 hectares approximately as the areas. On the order and alert, are we going to tell you the details around the planned burn? Is it? Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, we can definitely say that. Like, well, again, I got to say, go to the website or go through your comms with Jamie. We'll actually describe what the operation is. So you've got a sense. And I guess you will know too, because we'll probably make a recommendation to Jamie here and his organisation to put an order on. So it should be pretty obvious one way or the other. So cool. Do you have a question in the front? Hand up. Right. Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, the question was around notice for doing the order, if the area 1 is going to burn. How much notice would we have? Would you give us to issue that order?
So the answer is, if I could, I'd tell you the night before. That'd be the best. As I say, it is an operational decision, and sometimes we do make those decisions on the morning. So we give you sometimes not a lot of time, but we try and do it as early as we could in the morning to say, yes, we are going to go ahead, and at least gives you some time to get your pets and anything you want to take out.
Yeah, and just a reminder, that's why we've left the alert in place to be ready to go at any time.
Yes. No. Yeah, because we've had that little bit of moisture, I don't expect we'd go between like 10 or 11, and it definitely won't be 6 in the morning. I mean, sometimes we do burn overnight, not with helicopters, but with hand ignition. But in this operation, it'll be more likely mid morning to even lunchtime. So, yes, sir, at the back. Yeah, that's my initial, and it's totally dynamic. So, but that was my initial intent. There will be 24 hours out, because that gives us time to let the plant ignition settle down and get through that sort of period, and then we review. But I think it's a realistic estimate. But as I say, it's dynamic. So. Yeah, no, like I can, the answer is no. The only reason we cut power if there was a threat to the electricity line. And then from a safety point of view, we'd cut the power. So the question was, would we cut the power if there's an order? And the answer is no. It's only if so the community up at Doreen Point there the other day, fire did impact on the electricity line. We did work with BC Hydro, and power could get turned off. So, but not just because we put an order on. Yes, madam. Just the area I've circled, really. So it's not the park at this stage, because, as I say, we feel like the threat's not as immediate to that area. So you've got a bit of time and space there. Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, I really appreciate that comment. And what I will say is it's always a partnership in my mind, firefighting. We need to work with yourselves, and we can only make this work and make it safe, and make good decisions. Were you guys listening to our information that we put out and following some of those directions? So I appreciate you coming along to hear the information tonight, so you're well informed. So.
Well, thank you, Tim. One 866-377-7188. And in order to remember that, I put that in my phone. I would suggest that you guys maybe think about doing that just in case you need that number. The TNRD emergency email is emergency@tnrd.ca. And our emergency operations center can respond to those issues. The other thing is that I've been working with the Lac Le Jeune community group, Cindy Swain, a few other folks, and I'll try to send out to the community group the same information that we're sending out through the Voyant Alert, give people as much notice through the different channels as we can. Really want to thank everybody for coming out. Be nice to give them a hand on that. And really want to thank your team. I want to thank your team. I want to thank Doug. We've been trying to make sure we get all the information out to you folks as best we can. Thanks for tonight.